it duology or duology? Let me ask Siri. Hey Siri, how do you pronounce duology?
Okay, I found this on the web for how do you pronounce it?
Duology.
Okay, so it's duology. Okay, so I was correct. All right. What is up, book friends? Welcome to or welcome back to my YouTube channel. You're always welcome here. I hope this video finds you all well. Guess who finished reading the Six of Crows duology? This girl. So today I'm going to be sharing my reviews for the Six of Crows duology. This series really took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting to fall in love with the characters as much as I did. It's very intense and compelling, and I mean, what more could you ask for in a YA fantasy series? What's even better about this series is that it is being adapted into a TV series for Netflix, and I'm super excited about that. It's going to be called the Shadow and Bone series, and it's going to follow the Shadow and Bone series and the Six of Crows series. So for the first book, we have Six of Crows. This book was published in 2015, only a year before Crooked Kingdom, which is the second book. In this world known as the Grishaverse, we had a magic system called Grisha, hence the name Grishaverse. There are three orders within the Grisha. There is the Corporeal Key, the Ethereal Key, and the Fabricatorial Key. All of the Grisha have different functions. Some of the Grisha that live in Ketterdam, they are considered indentures, which essentially I think is like they're employed to people who are in positions of power. Some of the characters in this book are Grisha, and then the rest of the characters are simply human like you and I. I really love this world and the magic system. I feel like Leigh Bardugo does such a great job of helping me to immerse myself into the world. And that's something that I'm a little apprehensive about going into fantasy books sometimes, because I feel like fantasy is a genre that can be quite complex. So I really loved that about this book, and I also love that there is a fictional map, like I've mentioned before, that always helps me really to immerse myself into the world. The setting is kind of dark and it gets really trippy because there were already drugs on the streets of Ketterdam, but this scientist creates a even more powerful drug that gives Grisha extraordinary powers in addition to the magic that they already have. This drug essentially heightens their senses and can be lethal if taken too often. I also find it very necessary to mention that Ketterdam is a country that thrives off of commerce and trade. So there are only a few people who know about this drug and the rest of the people don't know. So the people who know about this drug are trying to keep it off the streets so that they can make a profit from it inevitably. There is a hierarchy within this world, and unfortunately the Grisha are not at the top, although they are more powerful than the average human. The ruthless merchants and mercenaries really have the power politically because of their money. Overall, for world building, I give this book particularly 5 out of 5 stars because the world is very clear and vivid. I was instantly hooked from the very beginning. This book is action-packed. Our main character is the infamous gang leader, Kaz Brecker, also known as Dirty Hands, and he is a feral kid who has lived amongst thieves and criminals for as long as he can remember. And this book follows him and 5 other members of his crew, whom he recruits to pull off a dangerous heist. His gang consists of highly skilled and dangerous individuals. They're more street smart than anything, so that's what really sets them apart from people in the military or guards. There is diverse characters and queer representation within this series, and 2 of Kaz's crew members are Grisha, which ultimately works to their advantage in this story. My favorite character of them all is Inej. I love her. She's so loyal to Kaz. You can definitely tell that there is some romantic tension between the 2 of them, and that theme of romance is sort of woven into the plot of this story just a little bit. And I like the fact that the romance isn't overwhelming and it doesn't consume the entire story. It just only hints at it. Kaz and Inej's dynamic definitely give me dom and sub vibes. Their romance is such a slow burn because Kaz is a character who likes to keep a lot of secrets, and then Inej is a character whom he really trusts, and she knows so much about him. She knows him more than all of the cast members in the book, and he definitely lets down his guard with her. I feel as though this duology in general is more character driven than plot driven, which I really didn't mind. I love how we get to see all of the main characters and supporting characters' backstories, and all of their secrets just unravel, which develops characterization and developing my emotional investment in these characters further. As the story progresses, the built-up tension between the characters really adds for characterization, and we learn more about the characters through this tension, and it just reveals who they are. My least favorite character in this series was Matthias. He just really gave me holier than thou vibes, but towards the end of the series I felt so much compassion for him because he truly developed as a character. I mean, he's like one of the greatest supporting characters I've ever read about. I felt like Inej, Jesper, and Waylon's character could have been developed a little bit more, especially after seeing some of the character artwork that I seen on the internet for them, because I was curious to know what other people thought that they looked like. But overall, I think this goes without saying, the character development was good. Now for the plot. So there is this very wealthy merchant by the name of Jan van Eyck who seeks out Kaz to pull off a very dangerous heist on behalf of himself for an insanely large amount of money, aka Kruge, which is the form of currency in this story. This heist essentially entails a kidnapping of the scientist who is creating this very dangerous drug. Every event leading up to the main plot literally gave it so much momentum. I feel like a moral to this story would definitely be to make sure that all the people on your team are driven by the same thing, if not similar things, because that was definitely one of their downfalls towards the end of this book. And it was so suspenseful because they were all just taking Kaz's instructions, like he's the only one giving the orders, and literally no one knows what the outcome is going to be. I feel like every one of the cast members definitely proved to be an asset and a liability in some way. It definitely kept me on my toes because there's so many twists and turns throughout all of the subplots. I really enjoyed following the story throughout all of the action and adventure. The word choice and the style of writing is A1, and all of the dialogues are so well thought out, and it just flows so well, which really reinforces the setting of the story. And this book has 6 parts, and each chapter is basically an account for each character. I feel like a lot of work definitely went into making this series, and that is so admirable. I definitely believe that Six of Crows is deserving of all of the praise that it receives. It's very addicting, and that is why I couldn't wait to get to the next book, which is Crooked Kingdom. There are quite a few trigger warnings in this story. There is violence, it's a tad bit gory, there's genocide, there's death of a sibling, there's trafficking, and there's some racism as well. Wait a minute, the way you move that Cricket Kingdom definitely maintains the same intensity and keeps the momentum going as the crew is trying to rescue Inej after she was captured. And once again, I really love Inej. She's such a bad bee. She wasn't just gonna sit around and wait for them to come rescue her. She was gonna save herself. In Cricket Kingdoms, the supporting characters such as like Matthias and Jesper and Waylon really thrived and pushed through, and we get to learn so much more about them through their backstories. Nina and Matthias's relationship grows more into a flirtation after they survived the heist. So we get the enemies to lovers trope and the friends to lovers trope. And speaking of flirtation, Jesper is such a flirt. I mean, he literally flirts with everybody in the crew. So from Six of Crows to Cricket Kingdom, I definitely believe that the character development is good. I genuinely enjoyed watching the growth in all of these characters. One of the most interesting characters in this entire story to me is Kue. He is the son of the scientist who created the dangerous drug that I was talking about earlier, and he was unfortunately killed. But Kue's character is so interesting to me because his role is so small yet so significant, and I just find that interesting. His cunning little personality definitely pushed through towards the end, which really surprised me. So since the crew was unfortunately swindled by Jan Van Eyck in the first book, this book is really all about their revenge, on how they plan to get their money that they were promised back and how they plan to rescue Inez. So it appears that the shenanigans and the schemes with this crew never really end. I feel like the series definitely reached its peak in Six of Crows because the momentum really dies down in Crooked Kingdom. The bad guy, Jan Van Eyck, he was no real challenge to them. I mean, he was so vulnerable and he was just annoying. So he was a threat, but he definitely wasn't terrifying. So that really just made the plot so uninteresting at that point. My focus in this book was going in and out, and I feel like that kind of means that my reading tastes are maturing a little bit. The build up to the plot was so freaking slow, and to be honest, I almost DNF'd it midway. So shout out to Kim Reeds for encouraging me to stick it out with this book and continue reading it, because I was so close to DNFing it. Things definitely started to make a turn for the better about 40% into the book, and like at the ending, like maybe 12 chapters towards the end, that's when things really started to get real. I couldn't quite understand exactly what their plans were. I feel like I was just going along for the ride. I really wanted to love this book mostly for the characters. One of the main questions that I had towards the end of this book was, why was Pika Rawlings still alive? Like, that was literally all I wanted to know. I really enjoyed the spirit of camaraderie and teamwork. I feel like it's such a beautiful thing, although it's not always glamorous. It is truly a roller coaster ride with Kaz and his crew, but that's honestly what makes you love them. This book does such a great job of transporting you into the story, and it has great imagery. It kind of reminded me a little bit of The Wicked King by Holly Black, how like the tide makers exposed the auction, similar to in The Wicked King there were like Selkies or like the underwater fairies or whatever. The chapters in this story were significantly larger than they were in Six of Crows, which was kind of throwing me off, but I guess that's kind of expected because this book is significantly larger than Six of Crows. This is about like 536 pages, and Six of Crows had about like 300 to 400 pages. But I knew that I was gonna miss this series, so I wouldn't actually complain about the page count. This is a super adventurous series, and I highly recommend that you guys do read this series. If you do decide that you want to read this series, I would also encourage you to annotate this book, as I wish I had annotated this book as I was reading. The trigger warnings in this book include mental illness, false diagnosis, and prostitution. I feel like Leigh Bardugo is an author who really pushes the envelope. I feel like that's what she's done in this duology, and I really want to give the Shadow and Bone series a try, and Ninth House, because I feel like she pushes the envelope with those series as well. Let me know what you guys think about those books in the comment section down below. And so that is my book reviews for the Six of Crows. Before I go, if you guys are or aren't familiar with Poshmark, I just relaunched my closet last month. So if you guys are looking into buying some new clothes for the springtime, please feel free to check my closet out. Poshmark is an app where people sell and trade new and used clothing and other items. So yeah, make sure you tell a friend. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. And that is all. I'll see you guys in my next video. Until next time, bye. So it appears that the shenanigans and the schemes with this crew never really end, and I feel like this series definitely reached its peak in Six of Crows.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you please repeat it?
What? Who said this?